This is my second State of the City address, and it's coming a little bit later on the calendar than it typically does, due for a number of reasons, most of which involve the campaign that was recently concluded. Although I feel like from December through about April 4th, I gave the State of the City address, or some variation of it, a couple dozen times a day as I made my case to the voters. And while things may not be perfect here at City Hall, we have a great deal of positive momentum, and now that we're past the election, can work to bring some stability to the city once a new council is sworn in on May 1st. We'll be working first off to fill the vacancy in the 7th Ward that will be created when I'm sworn in, and simultaneously the council is finally going to be able to tackle some of the HR challenges that were created when our previous city manager resigned last May. I want to take a second and stop here and just mention the debt of gratitude that I owe personally, and I think the rest of the council would agree with me, that we owe to Joe and Andrea. It would have been very straightforward and very easy for them to just simply maintain status quo when we pulled the bait and switch on them about 11 months ago. And it truly was a bait and switch because, as everyone recalls, initially we felt it would be about a 6-month period of time before we'd find a new city manager, till Mr. Supan told us that our hands were somewhat tied by state law and we had to wait till after we got past the election. So Joe was good enough to sort of sign on for the longer term, and Andrea did as well. Frankly, I have seen, and I know I've talked about it with other members of council, each member of staff really pick up their respective games and work on behalf of the residents and the employees here at City Hall. I'd also like to thank the council. While we don't always agree, and that's probably a good thing, I think we do so in a way that we're not disagreeable with each other. I tell people all the time, and I told people when I was out on the campaign trail, that I firmly believe each person that comes and sits at the horseshoe behind me does so with the best interest of all residents of Park Ridge in mind. And that's why we've been able to accomplish what we have in the last couple of years. I also want to reference one of the other things that's happened in the past year, and that's the loss of Alderman Knight. We've talked about this before here at this podium at council, how important he was to council, how he drove the budget process over the last 6 years and really got us to the point where we are today, where we've kind of somewhat turned the corner as far as some of the finances here in the city. We have been able to fill Dan's position with Charlie, who has done a great job of hitting the ground running since we appointed him just a couple of months ago, and I couldn't be happier and prouder to serve on City Council with him. On Tuesday, April 4th, the voters delivered a number of messages when they cast their ballots, but the message I heard during the campaign was that we, and I use that term collectively, everybody that sits in this room and in this building, are doing a good job. People are happy with their city government and on balance want to see us continue the progress we've made. Financially, things continue to get better, and we recently concluded a budget process and will make votes tonight with a reduced levy from previous years that actually has us reinvesting in our infrastructure as well as personnel. These were two areas in which we were forced to cut back due to the burdens that the TIF and the economy presented. And while we're not out of the woods as far as the TIF is concerned, as I mentioned earlier, we have turned a corner of sorts and are gaining ground. And this budget that will pass tonight reflects that progress. We'll be repaving more streets, planting more trees, and lining more sewers than we have in previous years, as well as advancing on some of the challenges that have come up in the last couple of years, namely parking. I want to highlight one construction project that's already begun and is not costing the city of Park Ridge a thing. The state of Illinois is repaving Talcott from border to border, helping a much-needed arterial street in our town get the work it needs. And while I'm grateful for the work staff put in to make this happen, and as well as I'm grateful to our friends in Springfield for helping facilitate this project, we need to be present and continue to make our case, because getting Talcott done is fantastic. But Tui needs work, and so does Devon. We can never afford to be complacent. There's just too much work to do. With the approval of the Local 150 contract, we'll have agreements in place with most of our bargaining units, and we'll forge those agreements in a transparent manner that has become our standard operating procedure when it comes to negotiating labor contracts here at City Hall. And this brings up another message that the voters sent a couple of weeks ago, and that revolves around HITA. Honesty, integrity, transparency, and accountability. HITA works, HITA makes sense, and people appreciate our approach to governing. So much so that they want to see it continue in the other areas of Park Ridge, the other branches of government, and the other taxing bodies. Really, these are very four straightforward concepts that shouldn't be the least bit controversial. Listen to the people you represent, explain why things are happening or why they're not happening, and be accountable, even when the people don't like your choices. For some reason, these concepts were confused with some grand plan or agenda over the last couple of months. But at the end of the day, I feel it's just the least complicated way to work for and with the residents and businesses in town. And I look forward to seeing it take hold in some of the other taxing bodies. As I said many times on the campaign trail, I'm proud of the progress we have made in the past 2 years as it relates to economic development. We filled empty stores, we brought more foot traffic to Uptown and to South Park, and we haven't had to sell our soul to anyone to make it work. And we haven't sacrificed a bit of the charm or attractiveness of our community that make it work. Have we encountered a bit of a parking challenge? Have we seen an increase in traffic in our streets? You bet we have. And the city is working to address those items, and we'll see solutions coming back over the next few weeks, next few months, that speak to those. This past year, we brought back to the city the forgotten or at least neglected practice of strategic planning. We had a number of sessions focused on where the city should be heading and what our priorities are and how we can begin to execute on those priorities in the short and long term. If one paid attention to the budgeting process, you were clued into some of those priorities. We will be focused predictably on economic development, rebuilding infrastructure and reinvesting in our infrastructure, utilizing technology to reduce costs, as well as increasing efficiencies and convenience for our residents. We will continue to make it easier and safer to walk and or ride your bike in Park Ridge and work with many people throughout town who wish to see the city move to incorporate more sustainability principles into our organization, as well as become a leader in the community and help others do the same. With summer right around the corner, I look forward to a calendar that was already full with parades, concerts, festivals, become even more full. I've heard there's an addition of a barbecue competition that the City Council may have an entry in, led by the alderman from the 5th Ward, as well as I've heard a few other events that are bubbling up to the surface, and will continue to allow Park Ridge to put our best foot forward and shine and be the envy of our neighbors. We, the City Council, will be hosting our 7th annual Grilling for the Arts Night in conjunction with the Friday night concerts in the park, continuing the tradition that Dan and Dave began many years ago. We may rename it ever so slightly to honor both of those gentlemen, but the intent will be the same: raise money for this great cause. We are blessed to be living in a place which has a strong sense of community. Park Ridge works so well because those that live here commit to making it better each and every day, as do those that work here and work in this room. My thanks go out to all the people who are here tonight and those who will be watching the address on television or on the city's website. Have a good evening.